Hello, YouTubers. This is for those of you procrastinators who are finishing your chapter work now, and it's just kind of random World War II and post-World War II vocab words. So we're going to take a look at all 9 vocab words that I've assigned to my class, and it more has to do with after the war and effects that took place after World War II. So the first 2 actually have to do with World War II, and that's Winston Churchill and Blitzkrieg. And so Winston Churchill, and we can kind of counter balance these 2 words with one another. Winston Churchill became the Prime Minister of Great Britain when Great Britain needed him most. He was a tremendous statesman, starting his life as a correspondent, as a soldier for Great Britain. He was the son of a American and a Brit, I believe, and became the leader, the Prime Minister of Great Britain during World War II. And he was a tremendous inspiration to the British, and was also very strategic and very influential in the winning of World War II, or at least the fighting of World War II for the British. So there was a quote I wanted to say, one of the examples of his inspiration. He wrote at the beginning, or gave this speech in 1940 to his nation in the House of Commons. He said, "We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and ocean. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." So Winston Churchill was a ally to the United States, an inspiration to the Allies in World War II. Now, that was going up against Adolf Hitler, obviously, and Adolf Hitler's new military Blitzkrieg style tactics, which were totally changed the face of warfare from what it looked like in World War I. If you remember back at World War I, World War I was an extremely stagnant war, fighting in trenches, and it was slowly advancing and then retreat and then advance and retreat. And so it was, for the most part, no land gained or lost in World War I. Germany changed that with their Blitzkrieg tactics. Now, Blitzkrieg tactics were made possible by really 3 major innovations. One was faster land vehicles. Tanks were faster and more effective at plowing ahead. Second was machine guns that were handheld, so submachine guns that could be carried instead of planted in one spot. And so armed men could actually run through using machine guns and other automatic weapons, which were more advanced in World War I. And then third was air power. So up in the sky, bombardment in the air became much more advanced, and it turned out that air power would be what would win this war. So Blitzkrieg tactics really meant lightning war, and it was the German technique of quickly bashing through and taking land fast. It's the reason that Germany was able to very quickly overtake most of Europe, and indeed overcome France, and would secure all of Europe for basically 4 years until the Allies were able to land and end the war after a successful D-Day invasion, and then coming in and taking over Germany. So after the war, a couple of key things happened. Well, a lot of key things happened. So first of all, the United Nations was formed, and the United Nations was kind of a revamped League of Nations, and the United Nations would hold more power. There was 5 members on the Security Council who would be there forever, and then the rest of the nations in the world were free to join, and it became an international forum for conflict resolution, but also for peacekeeping. So the 5 security members were China, Russia, Great Britain, France, and the United States, and they are still the 5 members of the Permanent Security Council who can vote to send force, if necessary, into areas that are needed. But the UN's primary mission is peacekeeping. And so that's been an important force in world politics since the end of World War. So this also, in addition to the beginning of the United Nations, this was also the beginning of the Cold War. Very quickly after World War II was over, USSR, which was the largest communist country, in fact, the only real communist country at this time, um, got into a standoff immediately with the United States and her allies as kind of democracy and capitalism versus communism. And so this Cold War was named so because it was a ideological standoff between the communists and the democracies. Um, and the idea was none of the democracies wanted to see communism spread, and the USSR didn't want to see their eastern bloc of Europe become democratic. They wanted to overtake them and make them become communist. So it was really this battle of ideology and who would win out. So it lasted for basically 40 years until the early 1990s when the Soviet Union fell and Russia became a democratic nation again. So, well, not again. Russia became a democratic nation, the Russian Federation. So that was the Cold War, and we'll talk a lot about that in our next couple of chapters. During the war, the Allies also signed something called the Atlantic Charter of 1941, and the Atlantic Charter was basically a promise to allow colonies to have self-determination, to allow these colonies that were under the control of the European powers, for the most part, the Western powers, to be free under certain terms and conditions and to allow them to become independent nations. So this was important to many African countries. This was important especially to India. And India, who had been under the nationalist movement leadership of Gandhi, and after Gandhi's assassination, Jawaharlal Nehru, who would become the first president, also had to deal now with Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And Muhammad Ali Jinnah was the leader of the Muslim League in India, who wanted to see not only an independent India, but two separate states after World War II. An independent India for the Hindu majority, but also a nation for the Muslims, the very large minority of Muslims. Well, about 20% of the populations of India was Muslim, and so Muhammad Ali Jinnah pushed for a free Muslim nation in India as well. And he got his wish, and Pakistan in the northwest of India, and later Bangladesh, which was part of Pakistan at the beginning, were the Muslim areas in India. So this kind of set the tone for some violence and disagreements between the Indians and the Pakistanis very early on. That a lot of that tension is still there today. Another area which was affected by this Atlantic Charter was South Africa. And South Africa was a settler colony, and there were white Afrikaners living in South Africa. And these Afrikaners were Dutch and British descendants who claimed kind of racial and moral superiority to inhabitants of South Africa who were African. And even though they were by far the minority, they controlled all political aspects of South Africa, as well as holding higher social status. Economic power rested in their hands. It was a system where the Afrikaners basically had complete and total control of South Africa even after gaining independence. And this system was known as apartheid. So this system of legal segregation was apartheid, and it would have tremendous effects on South Africa because it led to this major rift between white Afrikaners and black South Africans. So, and we'll see that in the coming parts of our unit as well. The final big effect of World War II that we'll discuss is the formation of Israel. So Israel was an independent nation that was granted to the Zionists, the Jewish Zionists, who wanted a homeland, a return to Israel and the homeland of the Jews. So because sympathy for Jewish Zionists was running very high after World War II because of the Holocaust and because of the atrocities that were brought about by Hitler and the Nazis, this new nation of Israel was formed, and it was formed smack dab in the middle of the Middle East, in an area Palestine, where the Palestinians, who were Arab Muslims and some Arab Christians, lived around the city of Jerusalem, which was holy to many of these monotheistic religions. Well, of the three, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, was a holy city of Jerusalem. So the creation of Israel created almost instantly strife in the Middle East, which has not ceased to this present day. So that's kind of your random post-World War II terms. I hope that that was helpful, and I'll see you again soon. Don't forget, be awesome.